The massive Baek warships emerged from the darkness of space, their engines glowing a fierce blue as they slowed to take up positions around Earth. The fleet stretched across the sky like a metal constellation, visible even in daylight to the terrified people below. King Do-hyun stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Glory, looking down at the blue planet with cold eyes. He was tall even for a Baek, his skin a pale grey blue that shimmered under the ship's lights. His ceremonial armor adorned with the marks of his many conquests. "Such a pretty world," he said, his voice deep and smooth, "and filled with such fragile creatures." The king's assistant, Kwan, bowed deeply. "The preliminary scans are complete, Your Majesty." "And?" Do-hyun didn't turn from the viewport. "The humans are physically inferior in every way. Their muscles are roughly 1/3 the density of ours. Their bones break easily. They have no natural armor or claws, and their lifespans are barely a century." Kwan's voice had the slight tone of contempt that all Baek used when discussing lesser species. Do-hyun smiled, revealing teeth filed to points, a fashion among the Baek nobility. "Show me their weapons." The holographic display lit up with images of Earth's military technology. Do-hyun laughed as he studied the primitive jets, tanks, and naval vessels. "These are their strongest weapons? They haven't even mastered basic gravity manipulation." The king shook his head in amusement. "This will be the easiest conquest since the Yun system. I almost feel bad." Science advisor Ji-ho cleared his throat nervously. Unlike the other officers in their polished armor, Ji-ho wore the simple grey robe of the scientific caste. "Your Majesty, if I may, there are some unusual readings regarding the humans." "What kind of readings?" Do-hyun asked with little interest. Already thinking about where he would build his palace on this new world. "Their societies show remarkable adaptation rates, and their technological development curve is steeper than any species we've encountered. They went from basic flight to space travel in under a century." General Tae, the king's military commander, scoffed. "So they learn quickly. What good is that against our plasma cannons?" "It's not just that," Ji-ho continued. "They show unusual resilience and creativity when faced with threats. Their historical records indicate enough." King Do-hyun waved a dismissive hand. "I've conquered 17 systems, Ji-ho. 17. Each time, my advisors warned me of some special quality the locals possessed. The Marine had their psychic abilities. The Vosh had their hive mind. None of it mattered once our troops landed." Ji-ho bowed his head. "Of course, Your Majesty." Do-hyun turned to his communications officer. "Prepare a planet-wide broadcast. Let's introduce ourselves to our new subjects." Within minutes, every electronic device on Earth capable of receiving signals began displaying the same image, the imposing figure of King Do-hyun, seated on his war throne. "People of Earth," he began, his words automatically translated into all human languages. "I am King Do-hyun of the Baek Empire, ruler of 19 star systems and soon-to-be ruler of yours. My scanners have analyzed your species and found you wanting. You are weak, soft, unworthy of the rich planet you inhabit." He leaned forward, his smile cruel. "But I am merciful. I will allow you 1 Earth week to prepare your surrender ceremonies. My representatives will land in your major cities to accept your submission. Those who bow will live as servants. Those who resist will be removed." He sat back, enjoying the moment. "I suggest you spend this week saying goodbye to your freedoms and preparing to serve your new master. That is all." The broadcast cut off, leaving billions of terrified humans staring at blank screens. Back on the flagship, General Tae approached the king. "The invasion preparations are underway, Your Majesty. We've mapped their major military installations. Our first strike will eliminate their leadership and defensive capabilities simultaneously." "Excellent," Do-hyun nodded. "Begin the standard protocols." "There's something else," Tae said hesitantly. "We've detected increased communications between their nations. It seems they're attempting to coordinate some kind of response." Do-hyun laughed. "Let them plan, let them hope. It will make their despair all the sweeter when we crush them." As the king left the bridge, Ji-ho remained behind, studying the data streams from Earth. Something about the humans' response patterns troubled him. Most species reacted to Baek arrival with panic or immediate surrender. But the humans, they were organizing with surprising speed. He zoomed in on images from Earth's surface. In cities across the planet, humans weren't fleeing or rioting. They were gathering, planning, building. "What are you up to?" he whispered to the screen. In his royal chambers, King Do-hyun added a new gemstone to his conquest crown, a blue and green stone representing Earth. He hadn't earned it yet, but he had no doubt he would. After all, what could these weak, soft creatures possibly do against the might of the Baek Empire? The king smiled as he imagined the monuments the humans would build to honor him once they understood their place. 1 week until the invasion began. 1 week until these primitives learned what true power looked like. What Do-hyun didn't know was that across Earth humans weren't just preparing to surrender. They were preparing to show the alien king exactly why it was a mistake to underestimate them. 6 days after King Do-hyun's terrifying message, the United Earth Response Council made a decision that shocked the world. Instead of preparing for war or surrender, they would request a meeting with the alien king. "This is madness," said General Park, slamming his fist on the conference table. "We're sending people directly into the lion's den," Council President. Yoon remained calm. "The Baek expect us to either fight and die or roll over in submission. They don't expect diplomacy. That gives us an advantage." "What kind of advantage?" "Their ships could vaporize our cities in seconds." "Information," said Taewon, stepping forward. As South Korea's top linguistic expert, he had been analyzing the alien king's speech patterns. The Baek clearly prize power and dominance. "King, Do-hyun wants not just to conquer us, but to humiliate us. That's a weakness we can use." Suji, a brilliant engineer with military background, nodded in agreement. "We need to see their technology up close. Our satellites can only tell us so much." The plan took shape quickly. A delegation would be sent to the mothership under the guise of discussing surrender terms. In reality, they would be gathering critical intelligence on Baek technology, biology, and culture, anything that might reveal a weakness. The next day, a small shuttle left Earth, carrying 12 humans toward the massive alien flagship. Taiwan and Suji sat side by side, both wearing formal diplomatic attire that concealed various sensors and recording devices. "Having second thoughts?" Suji asked quietly. Taewon smiled, though his eyes betrayed his fear. "About volunteering for a suicide mission to an alien warship?" "Not at all." The shuttle docked with the enormous mothership, which made Earth's largest. Aircraft carriers looked like toys in comparison. The human delegation was escorted by armed Baek guards, each standing over 7 feet tall with skin that seemed to shimmer like metal under the ship's lights. They were brought to a vast chamber, where King Do-hyun sat on a portable throne, looking down at them with amused contempt. "So," he said, his voice echoing in the cavernous room, "the humans wish to speak before submitting. How entertaining." Taewon stepped forward and bowed deeply. "Great King Do-hyun, ruler of the stars, we are honored by your presence. Earth's nations have sent us to discuss the terms of our cooperation." The king's lips curled into a smile. "Cooperation? An interesting choice of words for surrender." "Of course, Your Majesty," Taewon continued smoothly, "but even servants can be valuable if used properly. We believe humans can offer many things to the mighty Baek Empire." Do-hyun leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. "Such as?" "Our cultures, for one. Earth has thousands of distinct cultural traditions that might amuse Your Majesty. Our music, art, cuisine, all would be new experiences for the Baek." The king considered this. He did enjoy collecting cultural artifacts from conquered worlds. "Continue." Taewon was careful to maintain a humble posture. "We request a cultural exchange before formal submission. Allow us to share Earth's finest creations with you, so you may better understand what you will soon rule. And in exchange, we humbly ask to learn about the glorious Baek civilization, so we may better serve you." King Do-hyun laughed. "You are clever for primitives. Very well, it amuses me to grant this request." And so began what would later be called the Week of Deception. Each day, the human delegation brought different cultural items to the mothership: music, food, art, while asking seemingly innocent questions about Baek society. Suji presented the king with handcrafted jewelry, watching carefully how the metal reacted with his skin. "Your biology is fascinating, Your Majesty. Do all Baek have this beautiful color-shifting skin?" Do-hyun, flattered, explained Baek physiology in surprising detail, never suspecting that Suji was cataloging potential weaknesses. Meanwhile, Taiwan expressed great interest in the ship itself. "Such magnificent engineering! How do you maintain oxygen levels in such a vast space?" The proud king allowed the humans tours of safe areas of the ship, not realizing that Taiwan's watch was mapping the vessel's layout and scanning its materials. Back. On Earth, military scientists worked around the clock, analyzing the data secretly transmitted from the mothership. They discovered that Baek technology, while advanced, followed predictable patterns. Their computer systems used similar logic structures to Earth's, just vastly more powerful. "Their communication systems are vulnerable," reported one scientist, studying the encrypted data from Suji's devices. "They never developed protection against certain types of signal interference because they've never needed to." On the 5th day of exchanges, King Do-hyun gave the human delegation a special honor, dinner in his private dining chamber. The table was set with foods from conquered worlds, most unrecognizable to human eyes. "Tomorrow you will surrender formally," the king said, drinking from a goblet filled with glowing blue liquid. "But tonight, we celebrate your world becoming part of something greater." "We're honored," said Suji, raising her own glass in a toast. As she did, the miniature scanner in her sleeve cuff analyzed the composition of the king's drink and the specific way his body processed it. "Tell me," said the king, growing relaxed from the drink, "are all humans as accepting of their fate as you seem to be?" Taiwan smiled diplomatically. "We are practical, Your Majesty. We understand our place in the universe." Du-hyun nodded approvingly. "Wise. The Vosh resisted until the bitter end. There are no more Vosh now." That night, when the delegation returned to Earth for the last time before the planned surrender ceremony, they brought with them gigabytes of crucial data, ship schematics, Baek biological weaknesses, communication frequencies, and command protocols. In underground bunkers around the world, military leaders pored over this information, formulating a plan that seemed impossible just days ago. "The king thinks he's watching a surrender being prepared," said General Park, looking at satellite images of the alien fleet. "He has no idea what's really coming." Suji and Taiwan exchanged glances. They had played their parts perfectly, maintaining the facade of submissive humans awed by Baek power. All the while, they had been the vanguard of Earth's true response. "Do you think it will work?" Taiwan asked quietly. "It has to," Suji replied, "because Plan B is extinction." Aboard his flagship, King Do-hyun admired his reflection in a polished surface, imagining how he would look tomorrow when billions of humans acknowledged him as their master. The primitives had been so cooperative, so eager to please. This would indeed be his easiest conquest yet. The king had no idea that in less than 24 hours, his understanding of weak humans would be changed forever. The morning of the supposed surrender ceremony arrived with an eerie calm. King Do-hyun watched from his command ship as the first wave of Baek warriors descended to Earth in sleek transport vessels. Instead of the welcoming committees he expected, the ships were met with empty landing zones. "Where are the humans?" the king demanded, his voice tight with suspicion. General Tay zoomed in the visual feed. "Perhaps they're hiding in fear, Your Majesty." "Find them!" The Baek ground forces spread out from their landing sites, their heavy armor gleaming in the morning sun. Each warrior stood nearly 8 feet tall, carrying energy weapons that could cut through Earth's strongest metals. Like butter, they moved with practiced precision through deserted streets of major cities around the world. The silence was broken by the sudden explosion of a Baek transport ship in Beijing, then another in Cairo, then 3 more in rapid succession across different continents. "What's happening?" the king roared. Before anyone could answer, the first reports from ground forces began flooding in. Baek warriors were under attack, not by organized military units as expected, but by small, fast-moving groups that struck without warning and disappeared just as quickly. In New York, a squad of Baek soldiers cornered what they thought was a small resistance group in a subway station. As they moved in for an easy kill, The tunnel flooded with a gas that seemed to crystallize on contact with Bayek's skin, causing excruciating pain as it hardened in their breathing vents. "Impossible," whispered science advisor Ji Ho, analyzing the reports. "That compound targets our specific biology. How could they know?" King Do-hyun's face darkened. "The cultural delegation. Those sneaky worms." On the ground, the pattern repeated worldwide. The Baek forces would gain ground through superior strength, only to be undermined by surprisingly effective countermeasures. Human fighters were using the urban environment in ways the Bayek had never encountered, transforming familiar objects into deadly weapons. In Seoul, Bayek warriors watched in confusion as humans fled into a shopping mall. When the aliens followed, they found themselves trapped in an improvised electromagnetic trap that fried their armor's systems. The battle plan that had worked on 17 other worlds was failing against these supposedly primitive beings. Hours into the invasion, King Do-hyun's confidence had transformed into growing concern. The humans were fighting with unexpected ferocity. Even more disturbing, they were adapting to Bayek tactics, almost in real time. "This isn't possible," the king muttered, watching battlefield reports with increasing agitation. "They're communicating. Too quickly, learning too fast." Military advisor Sang Min approached the throne, his expression grim. "Your Majesty, I've analyzed the human resistance patterns. They appear to be using our own tactical frequencies against us." "Explain." "The information we gather from forward units is transmitted back to our command ships for analysis. Somehow, the humans are intercepting these transmissions. They know what we know almost as soon as we know it." The king's eyes widened with fury. "How? Our encryption is beyond their technological capability." "Apparently not, Your Majesty." As if to punctuate this disturbing revelation, alarms began blaring throughout the command ship. The view screens showed a Bayek cruiser listing in orbit, its engines dark. "What happened to the glorious victory?" demanded General Tae. A communications officer responded with shock in his voice. "They report that their navigation system suddenly reversed thrust during a maneuver. They crashed into their own support vessel." On Earth, the Baek ground forces were facing a bizarre new reality. Human soldiers, physically outmatched in every way, simply refused to stay down. A Baek warrior reported watching in disbelief as a human female, her arm clearly broken, picked up her weapon with her remaining good arm and continued firing. "They don't surrender when injured," the confused soldier reported. "They just keep fighting differently." By nightfall, what should have been a day of total victory had turned into a stalemate. The king paced his command center, rage building. With each new report of setbacks, "Bring me prisoner interrogation results," he ordered. "I want to know how they're doing this." The interrogation officer stepped forward nervously. "Your Majesty, the prisoners are problematic." "How so?" "They laugh at us. Even under pain inducers, they mock our efforts. One of them told me, 'You think this is pain? Try watching your sports team lose in the final seconds.'" The king couldn't understand such behavior. Pain was pain. Fear was fear. Every species respected these fundamentals, except apparently humans. Sang-min had been quietly analyzing battle data throughout the day. He approached the king with careful deference. "Your Majesty, I believe I've identified the humans' true strength." "Well?" The king's patience was wearing thin. "It's not physical, but psychological and social. Unlike the other species we've conquered, humans have no central authority. Their nations have been fighting each other for millennia, developing countless different approaches to warfare." The king frowned. "That should make them weaker, not stronger." "In normal circumstances, yes, but against us they've united while maintaining their diversity of tactics. Each human group fights differently, forcing our troops to adapt to dozens of battle styles simultaneously." As Sang-min spoke, more alarms sounded. A Baek ground commander appeared on screen, his armor scorched and dented. "Command, the humans have deployed weapons that bypass our shield frequencies." They couldn't have developed this technology so quickly unless... The transmission cut off abruptly. "Unless what?" the king demanded. Ji-ho's voice was barely audible. "Unless they've reverse-engineered our technology." King Do-hyun sank back onto his throne, the full implications hitting him. "How? We've been here less than 2 weeks. It took the Marin a full year to even understand our power systems, and they were far more advanced than these humans. Jiho pulled up analysis screens showing human communication patterns. They're sharing information globally at unprecedented speeds. Every discovery in one battle is being immediately applied in others. It's as if they're a single organism learning from each encounter. The king stared at the screens showing the worldwide resistance. Something fundamental had been miscalculated. These weren't the simple primitives his scans had indicated. What appeared to be physical weakness masked something far more dangerous, an unbreakable will combined with terrifying adaptability. In the privacy of his quarters that night, King Do-hyun reviewed the day's catastrophic reports. 17 successful. Conquests had made him overconfident. He had laughed at these humans, dismissed their potential. Now his warriors were dying at the hands of beings half their size. He made his decision. If ground forces couldn't subdue these humans through conventional means, he would resort to his ultimate weapon. By morning, orbital bombardment would begin. Let's see how adaptable humans were when their cities were turned to ash. What the king didn't know was that his decision played directly into humanity's trap. The real counterattack was about to begin, and it wouldn't be fought on Earth's surface at all. King Do-hyun stood before the holographic battle map, his face set in grim determination. The glowing dots representing his ground forces were blinking, out one by one across Earth's surface. The mighty Baek Empire, conqueror of 17 star systems, was being humiliated by creatures who couldn't even survive a single punch from his warriors. "Enough games," the king growled. "Prepare all ships for orbital bombardment. Target their major population centers first." General Tae hesitated. "Your Majesty, there are still thousands of our troops on the ground." "They're already lost," Do-hyun snapped. "We'll subdue whatever humans remain after their cities are ash." The command was relayed throughout the fleet. Massive weapon systems hummed to life as targeting computers locked onto Earth's cities. In the flagship's control room, operators initiated the firing sequences for the planet-killer cannons. Nothing happened. "What's the delay?" the king demanded. A weapons officer frantically worked his console. "System isn't responding, Your Majesty. Attempting manual override." Suddenly, every screen in the command center flickered. The Baek Imperial emblem dissolved, replaced by a simple human text message. "Thanks for the tour." Do-hyun's blood ran cold. He recognized the signature tag at the bottom. It was from Tae-won, the human diplomat who had seemed so meek, so fascinated by Baek technology during his visit. "What's happening?" the king roared. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Similar reports flooded in from across the fleet. Weapons systems offline, life support fluctuating, navigation compromised. Science advisor Jiho's eyes widened in realization. The cultural gifts, those trinkets the humans brought aboard during their visits, they must have contained dormant viral code. During the diplomatic exchanges, Suji had presented the king with a beautifully carved wooden box containing Earth delicacies. The box had passed all security scans because it contained no electronic components, just cleverly designed nanomaterials that gradually migrated into the ship's ventilation system and eventually into its computer interfaces. "Commander." Yunho rushed into the command center. "Your Majesty, our defensive shields are failing across the fleet." As if on cue, the ship shuddered violently under sudden impact. On the external cameras, the king watched in disbelief as Earth's supposedly primitive missiles struck his vessels with unerring accuracy. How were such simple weapons penetrating their advanced defenses? "Impossible," he whispered. "Their missiles shouldn't even be able to lock onto our ships." Jiho was frantically analyzing the attack pattern. "They're using our own targeting frequencies. Against us. The shields are being told these are friendly projectiles." Another communication appeared on screen, this time Suji's face. The meek, respectful diplomat was gone, replaced by a confident military commander. "King Do-hyun," she said calmly, "you should have listened to your science advisor about human adaptability. While you were planning to bomb us from orbit, we were preparing our response." The screen split to show multiple views of Earth's surface. What the king had taken for random human resistance was actually a coordinated plan. disguised launch platforms activated in sequence, sending specially designed missiles toward the Beck fleet. Your technology is impressive, Suji continued, but surprisingly easy to reverse engineer once we understood the basic principles. Your biggest weakness was assuming we couldn't learn quickly enough to threaten you. Du Hyun's fury overrode his shock. You think a few lucky strikes will save you? I still have enough ships to reduce your world to cinders. Suji smiled slightly. You misunderstand. The missiles weren't the main attack. At that moment, the flagship's engines suddenly fired at full power, sending the massive vessel lurching forward toward another Beck warship. Officers shouted in panic as they fought with unresponsive controls. What you're experiencing, Suji explained, is the activation of what we call a logic bomb. When Taewon admired your ship's control systems, he wasn't just being polite, he was mapping your command protocols. The virus we planted doesn't just disable your systems, it gives us control of them. Throughout the Bayek fleet, ships began firing on each other. Navigation systems sent vessels on collision courses. Life support systems created atmosphere imbalances. That left Beck warriors gasping and disoriented. In the chaos of the command center, King Do-hyun felt something he had never experienced in all his years of conquest: fear. Not just concern or worry, but genuine existential dread. He had catastrophically misjudged these humans, and now his mighty fleet was tearing itself apart. "My king," Commander Yunho shouted over the alarms, "we must abandon ship. The reactor containment is failing." "No," Do-hyun roared. "I will not. Retreat from primitives." But his officers weren't listening anymore. Across the flagship, escape pods jettisoned as the Bayek command structure collapsed. The king's personal guards, warriors who had sworn to die protecting him, were fleeing. Unho gave the king one last look, not of loyalty but of bitter disappointment. You were warned about their adaptability. You laughed at them. Without another word, he turned and left the command center. Left with only a skeleton crew, King Do-hyun watched helplessly as Earth's counterattack accelerated. Human controllers had gained access to nearly a third of his fleet, turning his own warships against the rest. The sophisticated Beck battle network, designed to coordinate attacks across vast distances, now worked against them as compromised ships reported false information. On a secure channel, General Tai reported from a secondary command ship. "Your Majesty, we've lost 40% of our fleet. Earth's forces are launching from hidden bases on their moon now. They're using modified versions of our own weapons." "How?" the king demanded. "How could they build such weapons so quickly?" "They didn't just start when we arrived," Tai replied grimly. "According to intel we've gathered, they began preparations the moment our long-range probes entered their system months ago. They've been planning this all along." A new transmission cut through the chaos, a broadcast from Earth's unified command. The human leaders spoke directly to the Beck forces, bypassing the king entirely. "Attention all Beck ships. Your invasion has failed. Your king has failed you. We offer safe passage to any vessel that withdraws from Earth orbit immediately. Those who continue hostile actions will be destroyed. You have 10 minutes to decide." Throughout the remaining fleet, ship captains faced an unthinkable choice: follow their increasingly desperate king or accept the humiliating offer from the supposedly inferior humans. One by one, Bayek ships began powering down weapons and adjusting course away from Earth. The mighty invasion force was disintegrating not just from human attacks, but from within. In the flagship's increasingly empty command center, King Do-hyun watched his empire's greatest defeat unfolding on the monitors. The humans hadn't just beaten his military force, they had shattered the myth of Bayek invincibility that had kept conquered worlds in line for generations. As the flagship shuddered under another impact, the king finally accepted the impossible truth. He had not merely underestimated the humans' technology or military capability. He had failed to understand a species whose greatest weapon wasn't physical strength, but the indomitable will to survive and the incredible ability to adapt. For the first time in his life, King Do-hyun prepared to surrender. The weak humans had taught him the most painful lesson of his life, that true strength comes in many forms, and those who fail to recognize it are doomed to fall. the once mighty flagship of the Bayek Empire drifted powerless in Earth's orbit. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow through the corridors, where just days before, King Do-hyun had walked with absolute confidence. Now those same hallways echoed with the sound of human boots. Commander June led the boarding party through the disabled vessel. Unlike the towering Bayek, he stood just under 6 feet tall, his frame lean but strong. His team moved with practiced precision, their weapons ready but not threatening. This wasn't a raid. It was taking custody of a defeated enemy. "Life signs ahead," whispered Han, the team's sensor specialist. "One Beck biosignature in the throne room. Must be the king." June nodded. "Remember, we're here to secure his surrender, not for revenge. Stay professional." The team approached the massive doors to the royal chamber. Surprisingly, they slid open without resistance. Inside, the opulent throne room was dark except for a single light illuminating the throne itself. There sat King Do-hyun, once ruler of 19 star systems, now looking somehow smaller than Jun remembered from the broadcasts. "So," the king said, his voice hollow, "the conquering heroes arrive." His ceremonial armor was dented, his regal cape torn. Jun stepped forward while his team secured the perimeter. He removed his helmet, wanting the king to see the face of humanity. "King Do-hyun of the Beck Empire, your forces have been defeated. Your fleet has surrendered or retreated. We're here to discuss terms." The king laughed bitterly. "Terms? What terms could there possibly be? You've destroyed everything." "Not everything," June replied calmly. "Most of your soldiers will live. Many of your ships are damaged, but salvageable, and you're still breathing." Do-hyun rose suddenly, his massive frame towering over June. The human soldiers instantly raised their weapons, but June held up a hand, stopping them. "I don't understand," the king roared, his composure finally breaking. "How? How could creatures like you defeat the Beck? You're physically weaker in every way. Your technology was primitive, your world was divided, it's impossible." June didn't flinch at the outburst. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to a piece of debris on the floor, part of a control panel that had broken off during the battle. When the king nodded numbly, June picked up the metal fragment. It was heavy, even for him. "To the Bayek it would be light as a feather. You're right about our physical weakness," June said. "I couldn't survive a single punch from you. Your people can lift 3 times what our strongest can manage. You live twice as long. Your skin can withstand temperatures that would kill us instantly." He set down the fragment. "But strength isn't just about muscle and bone." The king sank back onto his throne. "Then what is it about?" "Adaptation, cooperation, will." June stepped closer. "Throughout our history, humans have faced extinction-level threats, ice ages, diseases, natural disasters. We survived not because we were the strongest species on our planet, but because we adapted faster than anything else. But the technology," the king began, "was reverse-engineered, yes. When your cultural delegation showed us even glimpses of your systems, our scientists worked day and night to understand them. What takes other species years took us days because we've always had to innovate to survive." Do-hyun shook his head in disbelief. "You turned our own ships against us. When physically outmatched, you find different ways to fight. That's humanity's greatest trait. We refuse to accept limitations." June allowed himself a small smile. "And when threatened, we work together in ways that surprise even ourselves." The king looked up. "The unified response. Your nations have been fighting each other for your entire recorded history. Our intelligence showed deep divisions, hatreds, spanning centuries." "All true," June acknowledged. "We fight among ourselves constantly. But when faced with an external threat, those divisions fade remarkably quickly. We can hate each other and still fight side by side against a common enemy." Around them, the ship groaned as its damaged systems struggled to maintain basic functions. Through the viewport, Earth shone blue and peaceful despite the battle that had raged around it. "What happens now?" the king asked quietly. June pulled out a small device and projected a holographic document between them. "You have 2 choices. Option 1, you sign this peace treaty, acknowledging Earth and its people as a sovereign power, never to be threatened by the Beck Empire again. You'll be allowed to leave with the remnants of your fleet, though we'll keep some of your technology as insurance. And option 2? You face trial for war crimes against Earth and its people. The attempted genocide of our species carries serious consequences. Do-hyun stared at the document. If I sign this, I return to my empire in disgrace. I'll likely be overthrown. That's not our concern, June replied. Our only interest is ensuring Earth's safety. For a long moment the king said nothing. Then he reached for the document. How do I sign this human treaty? Press your palm here, June indicated. As the king did so, the document recorded his biometric signature. It is done, Do-hyun said softly. At that moment, June's communication device buzzed. Commander, we're receiving reports from around the system. The remaining Beck fleet has formally surrendered. It's over. The news settled over the throne room. The mighty Beck Empire, terror of the galaxy, had been defeated by a species they had dismissed as weak and primitive. You know, June said, your science advisor tried to warn you about us. Ji-ho saw something in our data that concerned him. The king looked up sharply. How do you know that? We had monitoring devices planted throughout your ship since the diplomatic visit. Ji-ho understood what most of your people didn't. Physical strength is just one type of power. As human forces secured the flagship, plans were already underway. Back on Earth, the stolen Beck technology would revolutionize human civilization. Interstellar travel, once centuries away, was now possible. Advanced medicine, clean energy, new materials, all were within reach. 1 month later, as the defeated Bayek fleet limped home across the stars, King Do-hyun stood before his imperial council trying to explain the inexplicable. How could the mighty Beck be defeated by soft, short-lived creatures? Meanwhile, on Earth, humanity took its first steps as a recognized galactic power. The unified response to the Bayek threat had created unprecedented cooperation between nations. The reverse-engineered technology was being shared globally, lifting all of humanity rather than just the powerful few. In a secure facility, Taiwan, and Suji worked with international teams to develop Earth's first true deep space vessels. Their experiences aboard the Bayek flagship had given them insights that would shape humanity's approach to the stars. Do you think they'll come back? Suji asked one evening, looking at the stars. The Bayek? No, Taiwan replied confidently. But others will. The galaxy is full of powerful civilizations. Some will be friends, others enemies. And we'll be ready, she said. Across the galaxy, the story spread quickly. The mighty Beck Empire, defeated by a species no one had even heard of before. Trade vessels carried tales of these humans who had turned an overwhelming invasion force against itself. Some stories exaggerated, claiming humans had mysterious powers. Others came closer to the truth, that humanity's greatest weapon was its refusal to accept defeat. In the courts of distant empires, the word human became a term that inspired both respect and caution. Species that had once dismissed Earth as an insignificant blue dot now sent diplomatic envoys eager to establish relations with these surprising creatures. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, deposed King Do-hyun contemplated the lesson he had learned too late. Never judge a species by its physical strength alone, for in the face of extinction, the most dangerous creature in the universe is the one that refuses to die, the one that looks at impossible odds and says simply, "We will find a way." It was a lesson the galaxy would not soon forget.